Here we are. We are in Parshat Shvuah, the weekly Torah portion. It is Portion-Tazria. It's normally Baruch Hashem for this year because it's a leap year, so the laning becomes much easier. Hopefully, because it's not Tazria Mitzorah now; it's just Tazria. The problem with it being just Tazria and not Tazria Mitzorah, because they both really dealing with the same sort of topic, is that you get two for the price of one. You get 2 weeks, you get to look at it a little closer, but it's much harder to speak on. So, with that said, Portion-Tazria starts off with a pregnant woman. A woman is pregnant, she'll have children, and so on and so forth. That's what we're going to hopefully get through and see what happens with it. So it says, Vayedaber Hashem Moshe lemor. So Hashem spoke to Moshe saying, Daber, around 608, like I said, Daber b'nei Yisrael lemor. Speak to the b'nei Yisrael and say, Isha ki tazria. A woman, when she becomes birth, when she conceives. Okay. V'yalda zachar, and she gives birth to a boy. V'tamai shivat yamim. She will become tamai. I'm not going to translate tamai because it's not a fair thing to translate tamai. It's a spiritual essence. But she becomes shivat yamim. She becomes tamai, tamei for 7 days. Sorry. Just like the days of her nida cycle, that's the level that she is matame. So what is that? That is the level that she is tamei. What does that mean for practical purposes? That the husband is not supposed to touch her, is only the husband, is not supposed to touch her or to stroke her, kiss her, whatever. In other words, the laws of nida now become applicable. So if you're sitting at the table and your wife would ask you to pass the salt, you couldn't pass it directly to her, you couldn't throw it to her, all the laws of nida. The hard thing becomes, how do you handle the children? I'm not going to get into the whole nida class. That's a different class. But nonetheless, these are the questions that abound. You're in the birthing room. Whatever you call that. Delivery room. Thank you very much. You're in the delivery room, and your wife wants you to hold her hands. Once she starts labor, in other words, once it's open, she is now a nida. So you're not supposed to touch her. You're not supposed to do anything. Again, it's best for the doctors. There are people who try to figure out different methodologies, but nonetheless, that's what we're talking about. The woman when she's giving birth, she becomes a nida for all intent and purposes. Now, what Rashi says here is, when a woman conceives, it says, Amar Rav Simlai. Rav Simlai said, Kashem shi sharato shal adam. Just as we hear of the formation of man after all the animals, the wild animals and the birds in Ma'aseh Bereshit, in the creations, in the act of creation, Kach Torato Niparsha Acher Torah Behema Chayva Of. So also the Torah of the laws of giving birth are explained after the laws dealing with what we dealt with before, the laws of the animals and the birds and so on and so forth. So he's asking, Rashi's question is, why are we learning about Tazria here? We were learning about Shemini, we're checking out all the kosher animals, and suddenly we jump into when a woman gives birth. What's the connection? She says the connection is very simple, that we're following the order of Bereshis. That the same way God created the animals first, and then He created a man, so also here. The Siftei Chachamim has a very interesting question. He says, if that's the case, that you want to see it's modeled on Ma'aseh Bereshit, so there you have that itself. You can say, what was the reason that the wild animal, and the birds were formed before mankind? That's a major question you have to ask. Why did God create the animals before us? Should have made the answer, we're the pinnacle of creation. Create us first, then create our little helpmates. Right? So, sorry? I thought you said something. Okay, so the Gemara has already answered this, and it says, why? For what reason was man created Erev Shabbat? Man was created on Friday, in order that that people should not say, or that the creations should not say that mankind was a partner to Hashem in the act of creation. That's number one, the first reason why we created last, so that everybody would recognize that we're now part of and partners in creation. Number one, that's number one reason. Another reason, that if he would become arrogant, so they could say to him, a mosquito was created before you. You're not so great. Okay, something else was created before you. Another reason, in order to enter into the mitzvah immediately, everything's prepared. God gives him a mitzvah. So if he wouldn't have not created everything before, he commanded him not to eat from the fruit of the tree, and so on and so forth. So or peruvu, for multiply. Then he couldn't have gone into it. So here everything's set up, and now he creates them. Another reason, in order that same sort of concept, he could enter into the meal immediately. So, and now he says, if you want, so that's number one. Number one is, why was man created before? Many reasons, basically to tell us that, yes, we're important, but when we want to become arrogant, the mosquito was born before you, or we want to make it, God wanted to make it so that we were fit to do the mitzvot immediately, and so on and so forth. Very nice. So now he says, wait a second. So if that's the case, now you want to say that we were created, that this story is following creation story. So then you should have put next week's parsha, Mitzorah, before Tazria, because Mitzorah is dealing with the man. Tazria is dealing with the woman. And he says, so what's the reason there? And he said, so the answer that they give.
Save the best for last?
No. So that way, so Mitzorah is best. That's not the best for last. At that point, the woman, they say, the woman is the ultimate creation. Okay, so that's the point. That's true. The woman is the ultimate creation. That's the. There used to be, when I was in college, they probably still have it going around, the women's livers. Adam was a rough draft. Adam was a rough draft. Okay, that was for the women livers of the early 70s and 80s, late 70s and early 80s. But I don't think they may still have that shirt going around. But it says, so the reason is that when Hashem was writing this down, it's more normal it's more regular, I should say, for a woman to give birth than it is for a man to become a Mitzorah. A Mitzorah is going to be a person who is afflicted with a spiritual disease due to Lashon Hara. So that was less frequent than a woman giving birth. So the Torah is dealing with what is more frequent than what is less frequent. So that's why in this parsha we break away and we say woman before man. Another reason he gives is that he says, so another reason is to put Tazria before Mitzorah is that the main tsaras, the main reason for tsaras is because you had the man had relations with his wife while she was in Nida, and it says in the Gemara that that would bring upon Mitzorah. Okay. Another thing is that the woman, it says in the Gemara that the woman is like the ground of the world in which seeds are planted in her. Okay, she's the recipient of the seed. So the man was created from the ground of the woman, so the ground of the world. Therefore, it says a woman when she conceives and gives birth to a male, as if to say that the male was born from the woman, which was the ground of the world. So again, the woman in this case would be first, because without the ground, without something to plant it in, nothing can grow. That's why they're putting the woman here first. So there's a whole bunch of reasons why they put the woman first. But it's just an interesting concept that here, this woman is, she's conceiving, she gives birth to a child, she is tamei again. Why did she become tameya? That's another question. So the art scroll, by the way, is a very nice thing on the bottom. And he says here, the creation of human life is the most sublime phenomenon in the universe. By bringing it into being, man and woman become partners with God, who gives a soul to their offspring. But this new life begins with tuma, spiritual impurity. Why? To show people that the mere fact of life is not enough. It's not good enough just to be born. It's an amazing statement. Life must be a tool for the service of God. Otherwise, it is nothing. After this period, so that's why it's tuma. Number one, you have to understand, that's why it's tuma. That because what Hashem is trying to say is, according to this, and he doesn't say who he's quoting, so I'll leave it to that, but I'll just say it's article for this point. But it's saying that life without God is tamei. God is what implants being tahor, spiritually pure. Again, I don't really want to define these terms because it's unfair, but it's because we don't really know what they mean. So after this period of contamination, though, a new mother begins her cleansing process of becoming tahora, culminated by the bringing of an offering. Before she brings it, she cleanses herself of this tuma, but she still may not consume sacrificial meat or truma, because the mere absence of tuma is not yet the fulfillment of man's goal. Human aspirations must rise higher than the elimination of the negative. It must strive for positive achievement. One is not completely cleansed until one has come to the resting place of Hashem's presence with an offering that represents atonement for the past and dedication for the future. Now, he gives you an interesting thing, and this is also something we have to keep in mind. Nowadays, it's customary that as soon as a new mother feels well enough to leave home, she goes to the shul and hears Kedusha or a similar part of the service. It is also customary that after the 40 or 80 days, when she would bring an offering, her husband is called to the Torah as a symbolic representation of the offerings described in this chapter. He continues to say these offerings and rituals symbolize the birth inaugurates the beginning of the ongoing privilege of raising a newborn child to a life of dedication and holiness that will enable God to say to the child and to his parents, you fulfill the purpose of the entire work of creation. And what is, by the way, let's pull all the classes together with one shot. What is the purpose of the entire work of creation? To attain the Vekas for the Hashem. That's the entire purpose. Serving God only gets us to that purpose. The entire purpose is to have this attachment to Hashem. That's why you pull all the classes together. Okay. So now what happens? Let's go on further. Next verse, it says, V'yom hashmini, on the 8th day, Yimol besar arlato, that the flesh of his foreskin should be circumcised. So the question is, why do you have to tell me about the circumcision? We were already told in Parshat Vayera, Parsha Vayera, that Abraham was commanded to do the circumcision, and he should circumcise his children all the way from that point on to this. So why do we suddenly have to hear on the 8th day the flesh will be circumcised? Yeah.
The only thing that jumps out at me, it talks that it shall be contaminated for a 7-day period, and then on the 8th day. That seems to jump out at me.
Okay, good. What does it jump out for?
Now that she's past that state,
she can go to the bris.
All right.
Yeah, that's one thing. She can go to the bris. Great. But again, why do you have to tell me that? First of all, sorry. But we already know that from before.
It says 7 days, and it just ties in with this.
Okay, I hear what you want to say. I hear. Okay, so 2 things, by the way. Again, uvayom hashmini, on the 8th day. So what does that tell you? That the bris must take place during daytime, not at nighttime. So that is why in this part of the time zone, we sometimes have a problem. Because even though we pray the morning service way before sunrise, not in the Torah Center we pray on time. In the synagogue, they pray long before that. They're 90 minutes before sunrise. So in the harsh winter, something like that. But when they have a bris, they must wait until sunrise.
That could be another. If they're starting at 7 o'clock in the morning, they got to wait till 8:15.
Yes.
December and January.
To make sure it is. We know what time the day is. Day is sunrise. So day is sunrise. So they have to wait for sunrise. So that's why sometimes the bris is pushed off to 8:15. It's not pushed off. That's the earliest they can do the bris. Yeah, so that's what they try to do. But it's just an amazing thing.
I know the answer. Because the world was created in 6 days and then the seventh day. No, that's the 8th day.
Okay.
I don't know.
No, I'm just telling you, that's what it is. It's telling you that must be done on the day. It can't be the night.
When it talked about the 8th day before, it didn't say 8. What did it say? What was the wording?
It's also the 8th day, on this 8th day of his birth. But here they're pointing out, here the rabbis are pointing out, because it says 7 days. On the 8th day, they're learning out from that, by the way, the Balatorum says, the gematria is equal to, on the 8th day, his flesh will be circumcised. He will circumcise flesh. So, gematria, shekol hayom yeh kasher lemol. It comes out to the same numerical value for the words that the whole day is kosher for Mila. So it's not just the early morning. I can go from anywhere from sunrise to sunset. I can circumcise from child. After that, I can't until the next day. And certainly before that, I cannot. Yeah, I'm sorry?
No, it's just safer to have it during the daytime so the moil can see, as opposed to by torch lights.
Okay, well, today we have LED, so it's not really a problem. But it's, no, I'm just saying, but that's very simple. That's very, it's very, the getting it from Uvayom. Then, what do I say? Right, so, and the foreigner wants to go with what you were saying. On the 8th day, he will be circumcised. He says, Ki az nitachel dam anido. By then, the blood of the nida is gone. This tummy is gone from her. And nizon of vlad b'mei imo. And the child is nourished from the stomach of the mother. V'tara vlad lihikanes b'brit kodesh. So now the child is tahor to enter into this new covenant. So since he was part of her, okay, and she becomes tahor after 7 days from the Torah. So then he also is cleansed, as it were. All that stuff is gone, and now he can enter into the covenant. That's another thing. He also both, right. Has to do with both of those, right? So then, and like I said, the only time we also learn from here that it can be done Shabbos on the 8th day. So even if the 8th day is Shabbos, you can do it, and so on and so forth, unless the child is sick. The biggest reason that has to be mentioned here, as opposed to relying upon the Bereshit story, is because in Bereshit the Torah was not yet given to us. They were commanded. It was not yet at the level of Moshe, Torah Tziva Lana Moshe. It wasn't at the level. Once we got the Torah at Sinai, so now all these commandments come into being. So I have to repeat that commandment. That's what many people want to argue also. That the commandment before was just a suggestion, if you will, to Avram. It was a way to enter into the covenant and so on and so forth, but it wasn't something that was at the level of any one of the Tariq mitzvot. So now it's a level of, now it's Tariq mitzvot, so it has to be repeated. That's why all of the mitzvot that were in it's only 3 mitzvot, that were in Sefer Bereshis, I think it's only 3 mitzvot, the sciatica nerve, Peruvu, and Mila. That's all there are. So they were all repeated later. Yeah.
Okay, because it reads as a commandment.
No, again, I'm not arguing that Avram understood as a commandment. What I'm saying is that everything had to be repeated according to that opinion, because morning, afternoon, night, whatever it's all spent here. Okay, that because once the Torah was given, it had to be under the new covenant. They had new covenant back then too. Okay, so it was part of the new covenant. It wasn't part of the old thing, so that's why they have to say it. Okay, that's according to that opinion. I can't argue on certain opinions. Then it says, let's continue on. So now on the 33rd day of Tishrei B'Tamei Tahor, she's sitting for 33 days. She'll sit in the bloods of Tahora. What does that mean? She's bleeding all this time. Potentially, when you have a baby, you can be bleeding up to 6 weeks, I think it is.
Even if you're not, you still have to count the days, right? You can't.
Yeah, no problem. But I'm saying, as soon as she does see blood,
Right.
okay, what is it? It's considered tamei tahara. And still, what happens? What does that mean? It says that even though she sees it, it's still considered tahor. So she doesn't have to separate from her husband as far as handing things off and so on and so forth. Today, we don't rule like this at all. Today, we consider the whole period nida. Okay, so this is only biblical. But today, until your wife goes to the mikvah, it's off limits. And doctors, by the way, and also I remember the doctors saying that because the non-Jews don't have these laws, so they tell the husband, I think it's in the literature, you should not have sexual relations for at least 6 weeks, because the woman is healing up. So it's interesting how secular science, how the sciences agree with Jewish law. It's always nice when they verify us, but for different reasons, whatever. But but that's where they're coming from. So the Torah is saying, and this is the interesting part, for 33 days, now add that to the 7, altogether you have 40. Okay? Right? Because at 7 days she wasn't supposed to be with her husband at all. Then 33 days, now if she sees blood, it's not considered it's not considered dam nida, it's just considered tahor. But still now below kodesh l'tiga, she can't touch anything that's from the of eating anything that would be considered kodesh, like truma. What?
Question.
Yeah.
After giving birth, if the husband can't even pass the salt, if he can't even pass the salt to her,
Right.
how does she's allowed to cook or she's not allowed to cook?
I can't. Yes, she could cook.
Oh, but she can't pass the salt, but she can cook.
I can't pass anything during any.
Directly from your hand to her hand, you mean? You put it down and she pick it up.
Right.
Well, she's cooking.
So what?
She never said. And
She
then-
can touch it and stop her from. So your question is why can't you pass? That's really your question. Okay, fine. So the question is why can't she pass? The reason she can't pass, the reason she can't wash her husband's face or serve him the food in front of him is because those are what we call terms of endearment. That's one thing can lead to another. So it's not a matter of she's dirty.
Right.
It's not that at all. It's that if you start,
Eye contact and you're-
right, I'm gonna pat you now. That's terms of endearment. So one thing can lead, because we don't have the fence up anymore. So now maybe I'll kiss you, maybe I'll do this. We could end up having relations, and now we can be in trouble. It's not a good situation. So the rabbis made these fences, and we have to follow them. Again, it's terms of endearment, which is why, by the way, when a man, stretching this up to practical halacha, outside of marriage, a man or a woman is not supposed to touch. And that's why people, when they want to shake hands, really, the halacha would say, I shouldn't shake a woman's hand. What's the heter for shaking a woman's hand? And I'll say this openly. It's a heter, first of all, it's a leniency. It doesn't mean I have to grab onto it, but if I need it, I will. So if somebody is going to be embarrassed by me not shaking their hands, fine, I'll do it. But what's the whole heter based upon? Because according to many opinions, shaking hands is no longer a term of endearment. Everybody does it. Since it's a normal way of doing it, the sensitivity is broken down. And therefore, I am able to, based upon that philosophy of it's not a term of endearment anymore, I can now ride upon that heter, that understanding of the law, and shake the woman's hand. If somebody does not feel comfortable with that, then they should not shake the woman's hand. There is no heter for, there is no leniency whatsoever for, and I will yell this from the rooftops, is kissing. There is none. On the cheek and all this mishigas. I don't get excited by I don't care what you get excited by. It's none of my business.
The tradition of your rabbi?
It's not tradition. It's no. It's not. Give me a halacha. The tradition is on halacha.
You said you can shake hands.
I said because the understanding of shaking hands, the reality of shaking hands is that is done with everybody. This is the way people greet each other. Today, it's the way that people greet each other.
Right, but we don't here because we're Orthodox.
Again, if people know better, they want to keep a distance, so that's how you do it. Because each time you break down,
It's a matter of tradition.
it's not tradition. It's not. No, if I define it as not a term of endearment, if I define it as a term of endearment, I cannot do it. What I'm doing is looking at what do I define shaking of the hand. Kissing is certainly a term of endearment. You can't argue on kissing. You can't argue on hugging. If you do, again, something's wrong with you. I mean, the old joke was a person went to his Rav and said to him, "Rabbi, when I hold my girlfriend's hand, I don't get excited." So the rabbi said, "It's time to get a new girlfriend." That's all. It's stupidity to believe that I can kiss, I can hug, I'm not going to get excited. If you do, then something's wrong with you. I'm sorry. We're not talking about sisters. We're not talking about mothers.
Right.
Okay, and for Germans, you're not talking about aunts or aunts. I say aunts. I don't know how you guys say. Aunts, you say here. Aunts, whatever you say here. Aunts, but there becomes a break point. Like my sister-in-law is no. Because it's not there. My sister, yes, 100%. My sister, yes, but again, because that's not part of the halacha. Again, you have to know where you're going with that. But as you get older, I don't know, some people won't feel comfortable there either. So, again, at that point it becomes comfort. What do I feel comfortable with? What's normal? What's not normal? Okay. So that, like I said, Germans are very, lenient when it comes to that definition of... No, I don't care. I'm talking about German Jews. Maybe Italian Jews would also be. When you go to the other side of that fence, so people are more strict with that. And it goes even to, can you pick children up? In other words, they're not yours. They're not yours. So I pick up a little girl, and if she's over 3 years old, the parents want to sometimes shoot you. So, and today, by the way, in this world of craziness, you don't pick up kids. Okay, there you go. Whatever the case is, you have to. I don't want to use names, but it's we have to be aware of. That's where the whole thing is coming from. It's an understanding of what the halacha is and how it. So it's not. I want to get away from tradition, though. It's not tradition. That's a reform way of saying we don't have to follow it. This is halacha. I have to understand, and why I say that, by the way, I'm not picking on reform, but when they were talking about cremation. I remember the Reform rabbi here, not the present one, the previous one, saying about cremation. Jewish tradition is against. I said, no, it's not tradition. It's straight halacha. It's law. There's a difference between tradition, eating matzah balls on Pesach, and a halacha. I'm sorry, I can't say. He was all upset with me. I said, I don't care. So it's very different. So I don't like the word tradition when it's talking with halacha. It's not. Okay? So again, so what happens? She can't touch any kodesh, lo tavod melotime taharat, and she doesn't until the days of her the tamai tuma goes, and she's out the days of tahor, and she has to finish everything. Like I said, 40 days later. Now, next one, im nekevatele, if she gave birth to a girl, So what happens? Now she gets a 14-day vacation from her husband. The first one was 7 days. Now it's 14 days. Double. I have a girl. I'm separated from my husband for 14 days. And now, again, double the time. That is for the tahor that I finish with my... So she gets 80 days for a girl. 80 days for a girl for the cleansing process, if you will. And 40 days for a boy. Okay? So, like I said, you can ask a lot of things. You can answer a lot of questions. Whether it all depends on where you're coming from, the way the Ramban wants it answered, and also the Kli Yakar. So I answered it this way. I don't know scientifically if this is how it works, but I'm not going to argue science at this point. It's when she gives birth to a girl, apparently the blood is colder, so it takes a little longer for the blood to run its course as compared to. Sorry?
I never heard that.
Well, now you did. Again, I'm not defending it one way or another. I'm just saying what they said, and so that's why it takes twice as long for the girl. Another way to look at this, and this is my own pshat. Again, people can argue and call me whatever they want for this. But the way I look at it is like this: when a woman gives birth to a man, the man does not have the power to give birth. Right? He has the power to impregnate a woman, but he doesn't have the power to give birth. So as a result, when she was pregnant, she was at the level of creator. Let's understand that. She rose up to the level of creator. Okay? Because she's creating. She's part of the creative process here. So she's housing this baby, is growing in her and so on and so forth. She's going there. She feels it. She's very connected with Hashem. Very much more than any man can ever be. Okay? Because of that baby growing, she feels it going. She's nourishing. Great. Life is growing in her. She's a creator. But again, she puts out the boy, and while the boy can impregnate, he can't himself carry the life. So she is separated for 40 years because she needs to come down from that height that she was at. And anytime you change from one status to another, that's when Tuma comes into it. So she has to go from that, and we would call that today post-mortem depression, I guess. That it could be something like that. Postpartum? Sorry. Yeah, postpartum means after you're dead. Right. Postpartum, after you die, you have depressed. Okay, good. Postpartum, you said. Postpartum. So that could be one explanation for that. I'm not sure.
Oh, it's kind of like leaving the Sabbath for the secular week, where you smell the...
Correct. Same sort of thing. I'm going from one, I have to go through decompression. So I'm coming from that high level where I was connected, so connected to that child, and now I'm not. So I'm dropping like that, and it takes me a little while. But the boy, like I said, the boy is not going to make a world. Now she has this girl in her, and that girl has potential. I'm not guaranteeing it, but she has the potential to bring another child into the world. She has spiritually gone to such a higher level that now it takes her twice as long to come back down to our place. That's my interpretation. I've never seen it written anywhere. Again, if people can argue all they want on me, I think it's a nice way to look at it, and I think it makes sense. More than anything else, I think it makes sense. I don't think I'm being apologetic, but who knows, maybe I am. Okay, so I'll leave that to anybody who wants to argue with me on this amazing internet that we have. Yes, you want to argue?
Well, what's it called? I just heard argument.
You heard the word argument. You want to get into it? Okay. I'll tell you to watch this. I'm not going to repeat. So let's go on. Okay.
The classes are taped.
They're all aligned. So he knows. He just wants to make fun. So on the days of the cleansing, being tahor, leban labat for the girl, for the son, or for the daughter, tavi. So what does she have to do? She has to bring, after these days are finished, she brings keves ben shnatoli Allah. She has to bring a lamb, a 1-year lamb for an olah offering, and ben yona utor lechatat, and she has to bring a young dove, or how does she say, young dove or turtle dove? Thank you. for a chatat offering, a sin offering, el petach al moed, el kohen, to the opening of the tent of meeting to the kohen. The obvious question is, why must she bring a sin offering? Why should you bring that? It's crazy. What did you do wrong? You had a kid. It's very important to have kids.
She was resentful to her husband.
Oh, that's one question. That's one of the answers. I mean, it says that she has to. I'm surprised Rashi didn't say it. I thought it was Rashi who said it.
Because of the labor pains.
So what happens?
She was mad, probably.
Not well. Yeah.
I know, I didn't like that.
Okay. So there you go. You're living proof. So what happens is, it says she seeks atonement for two kinds of sin. One is the elevation offering, that's the olah, atones for resentful thoughts that she may have had against her husband or even Hashem during her labor pains. That's even Ezra. The sin offering atones for the possibility that in her agony she swore never to live with her husband again. Okay, everyone says, stay away from me, you bum. Right, stay away from me. I don't want to be near you again. Leave me alone. So for that reason, she has to bring those sin offerings. Now, again, the other reason she would have to bring a sin offering, logically, is because she went from such a high level, and she came down she went to the lower level. Even though it's normal, it's part of the process, so is being a Nazir, so is so many other things. There's a process here. So when I go from one level to another, I have to bring a chatat. Okay, because I should have wanted to remain at that level. That would be logical. Okay, so whatever, like I said, the simple reason is that she made her a vow not to let her husband touch her, not to live with her husband, whatever the case is going to be. Okay, so then it goes, V'hikri vo lifnei Hashem, v'chiper aleh. So they'll bring this, they'll offer it before Hashem, and it'll atone on her behalf. A tahor mikol demer should become tahor. Zotor hayoleh l'zachor l'keva. So that is the law of a person who gives birth to a male or a female. They said, let's say she doesn't have enough money to buy the seh, so she takes two turtle doves, or two young doves, one for an olah, one for sin offering, and once again she can atone for herself and become tahor. So the reason that the Torah is being very nice here, that if she doesn't have money for one, she can bring money. She can always do the other one. The other one is much less expensive. The point is that this is how one becomes tahor. Okay, that's all. There's really no grandiose. Maybe a lot of secrets there, but there's nothing that we have to really get caught up there. Okay, so now we come into the next part. We have saras. What is saras all about? It's a famous drasha that everybody likes to give for this. He'll give it here. I'll read his a little, and we can maybe start the conversation at that point. It says, for hundreds of years, the popular translation of saras has been leprosy, but it was commonly accepted that the prevention of the disease's spread was the reason for the quarantine of the suspected victim of saras and the exclusion from the camp of the confirmed Mitzorah, the person smitten with the malady. So Rabbi Hirsch demonstrates at length and conclusively that both of these nations are completely erroneous. Very briefly, he shows that symptoms of saras, as outlined in our parsha, are far different from those of leprosy. Furthermore, if the reason for the Mitzorah's confinement is to prevent contagion, then some of the laws would be ludicrous. For example, if the malady covers the victim's entire body, he is not considered tamai, and he can wander around, he can talk to everybody. But if his skin begins to heal, then he becomes tamai. So that doesn't make sense, right? In the case of a house that is afflicted, the Torah prescribes that before the house is pronounced tamei, all its contents should be removed because they would become contaminated if they were left inside at the time of the pronouncement. But if there was a danger of contagion, it would be irrational for the afflicted household items to be excluded from the quarantine. And perhaps the most telling example, the Talmud teaches that if the symptoms of saras appear on a newlywed or during a festival season, the Kohen does not examine the affliction or declare it to be tamei. in order not to interfere with the celebration. But if the purpose for these laws is to prevent the spread of a disease, it would be absolutely imperative to enforce the law at times of great overcrowding and mingling. So clearly, as the sages teach, tsaras is not a bodily disease, but the physical manifestation of a spiritual malaise, a punishment designed to show the malefactor that he must mend his ways. The primary cause of tsaras is the sin of slander. As the sages say, the word mitzora is a contraction of motzi ra, one who spreads slander. Similarly, the sages teach that the affliction is a punishment for the sins of bloodshed, false oath, sexual immorality, pride, robbery, and selfishness. The pattern that emerges is that it is a divine retribution for the offender's failure to feel the needs and share the hurt of others. God rebukes this antisocial behavior by isolating him from society so that he can experience the pain he has imposed on others and heal himself through repentance. So what we're seeing here is the whole subject of tsaras is what we're, like I said, all these different things that we'll hear about in this parsha, exclusively dealing with men and women, are spiritual diseases manifest in a physical manner. The only one, I'll give you on a fairly quick fashion here, the only one who can declare the person tamai is a Kohen. If the Kohen is not schooled in what the different signs of tsaras are, and somebody else is, let's say, he's a Kohen. Let's say Mr. Orenstein would know all the laws of tsaras. He's a Talmud Chacham, he knows them, all of them, he learned them, he went to school for them, and I'm an Amma Aretz. What can I tell you? I don't know these things, I never learned it. They didn't teach that at NYU. They only taught me how to give speeches. Okay, good. That's not true, but okay. So what happens is, so Mr. Arenstein, somebody has tsaras, and Mr. Arenstein says to me, as a Kohen, Rabbi, it looks like a nega. It looks like it possibly could be. And this is why he teaches me what the laws are very quickly, and he shows me this is it. Now I'm the only one who as a Kohen, who can declare it, who can declare the guy as tamai, as tsaras. I'm the only one. He can't, even though he knows what it is. He knows clearly. He can't do anything because he's not a Kohen. Okay, so that's really what's going on here. Like I said, the rest of the parsha deals with the different signs. Again, I'll leave it to you to look at all the art scroll and everything else. They do not translate the names because what's the use of translating what we don't understand? So we just call it Se'es, Sapachat, and so on and so forth. He says we transliterate the Hebrew because there's no accurate translation for either word tsaras or its subdivisions. We don't know what we're looking at. Again, it's the Kohen. There's actually somebody who called me up, Gudas Kohanim, I think it's called, and they wrote the book on it. And they have pictures of what tsaras looks like, which I think is really interesting because we don't know what tsaras is. So, but they wrote a book, and I bought it, and I have it. And it's in my book. And if he's watching now, he should know I advertised him. But it's Agudas Kohanim, I believe it is. But for $25, you too can own this important book. That when Mashiach comes, we'll all be ready to know what tsaras looks like, assuming he's right. Okay.
Especially as a Kohen.
He is a Kohen.
No, I said especially as a Kohen.
Right. Okay. So we'll stop here. Have a good Shabbos.